Azusa Isurigi was a beautiful and talented woman admired by everyone at her company. However, her calm and serious personality made her seem distant and unapproachable. Because of that, many coworkers saw her as cold and intimidating, even though she never meant to be. Deep down, Azusa simply didn't know how to express herself or connect with others. But everything began to change when she met Yu, a cheerful new employee who saw past her icy image and saw her as a kind-hearted girl. The story starts with Azusa walking confidently toward her company building. Her posture was perfect and her expression composed, the kind that made people recognize her instantly. Around the office, she was known for her award-winning proposals and her precise, almost flawless work ethic. As she stepped through the lobby, several employees glanced her way with quiet admiration. But the moment she reached the entrance gate, her calm image cracked. She scanned her card and tried to pass through, but the gate didn't move. Looking down, she realized she hadn't scanned her ID at all. It was a business card for plumbing services. A wave of quiet embarrassment washed over her as she hurriedly corrected her mistake. Meanwhile, in the publicity department, her colleague Kusuk was drowning in stress over a growing pile of work. The atmosphere in the room shifted as Azusa entered, heading straight to her desk. Her coworkers greeted her politely, some with genuine respect, others with nervous courtesy. Once the greetings faded, everyone immediately returned to work. No one wanted to look idle in front of her. Soon, Mori approached her with a concern. One of the influencers they had hired for a campaign had suddenly become unavailable. She asked if Azusa had any ideas on how to handle it. Cold and composed, Azusa reminded her that it was her own responsibility to manage the situation. Still, she offered a solution. If that influencer couldn't participate, they could easily find a stand-in, since several other talents were available. Mori thanked her and retreated, slightly intimidated but relieved. Not long after, Azusa walked over to Kaosuk's desk to hand him some corrected documents. She told him to send them to the planning department, then noticed his messy workspace. With a sharp tone, she scolded him and he hurriedly began cleaning, mumbling an apology. A moment later, Azusa was called over by her boss, Iji. As she walked away, two female co-workers whispered about how dependable she was, while Kusuk muttered that she was also terrifying. The girls agreed, though they admitted she could at least try being a bit friendlier. When Azusa reached Eiji's office, he informed her about a new hire who would be joining their department that day, and that she would be in charge of training him. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across her face, but Eiji reassured her that the newcomer was talented and should adapt quickly. He added that having someone as accomplished as Azusa as his mentor would surely benefit the company. Azusa smiled politely at the compliment and accepted the assignment, though inwardly she sighed. She had spent years cultivating her icy image precisely to avoid things like after-work gatherings or mentoring responsibilities. Unfortunately, Eiji seemed completely unaware of her intentions, still believing she got along with everyone. The thought made her even gloomier, though she promised herself to stay professional. Moments later, the new hire arrived. An energetic voice echoed through the department as a young man greeted everyone. Turning around, Azusa saw him, Yu, the new recruit, smiling brightly as he introduced himself to Eiji. When their eyes met, Yu quickly apologized for interrupting, but Eiji introduced them properly, asking Azusa to show him around. Azusa responded with her usual cool tone, hiding the fact that inwardly she was quite flustered. She found his energy and boyish charm unexpectedly disarming. Still, she composed herself and resolved to fulfill her duty as his mentor. She led Yu to the merchandising room, explaining that the company had originally started as a game developer but had since expanded into several industries, from apparel to real estate and more. Because of that, their publicity department was constantly juggling multiple projects at once. Determined to be thorough, Azusa gave Yu a full tour, the desks, the kitchen, the copy machine, the snack area, even the location of the nearest bathroom. Feeling rather proud of her efficiency, she believed she had covered everything important. But as soon as they sat down, Yu hesitantly admitted that he still didn't know what his actual job was for the day. Realizing she had completely forgotten to explain his duties, Azusa quickly recovered and told him that for now, he would accompany her to a client meeting and observe. Before leaving, she decided to teach him a bit of business etiquette, starting with how to exchange business cards. She tried to demonstrate, but when she attempted to open her card holder, it snapped open and spilled its entire contents across the floor. Mortified, she froze. Yu immediately knelt down and helped gather the scattered cards, handing them back politely. Her composure wavered, but she forced herself to thank him curtly and continued with the day. At the meeting, Azusa and Yu greeted their guests professionally. Yu followed her lead perfectly, offering his business card just as she had shown him. Outwardly, Azusa delivered her presentation flawlessly, but inside she was in chaos. She could feel Yu's attentive gaze on her the entire time, and it made her more nervous than she wanted to admit. After the meeting, Yu complimented her poise, unaware of how drained she felt. As lunchtime approached, Azusa debated whether she should invite him out. She began smiling faintly at the thought, but then panic set in. What if inviting him could be seen as inappropriate? What if she seemed too cold if she didn't? Her thoughts spiraled. She even began worrying about what kind of small talk she could manage. Yu, noticing her troubled face, asked if something was wrong. Flustered, Azusa abruptly claimed she had another meeting and told him to eat without her. She hurried off, cheeks burning, and once alone, slumped against a wall, sighing in defeat. Mentoring, she realized, might be harder than she thought. By the end of the day, Yu stopped by her desk to say he was heading home. Azusa gave a short acknowledgement, then mentally scolded herself for sounding cold again. But before leaving, Yu thanked her sincerely for helping him through his first day, admitting he had been nervous. Azusa softened, telling him it was natural for newcomers to make mistakes and reassuring him that he could rely on her. Her words, though few, were genuine. That night, as she walked home through the quiet streets, guilt crept in. She realized she had spent the entire day worrying about her own image instead of focusing on Yu's experience. Determined to do better, she promised herself that tomorrow, she would try to be more open and straightforward. The next morning, Yu was chatting with some coworkers when Azusa arrived. She coldly told them to make way, and everyone immediately stepped aside. Feeling oddly proud of herself for greeting them normally, she sat down, completely unaware that she had just intimidated everyone again. Later that morning, she handed Yu a new assignment, drafting a proposal for a manga studio. She gave him some of her past work as reference and told him to use it as a guide. While Yu worked, Azusa made a private vow. Today would be the day she finally invited him to lunch. When Yu came over to ask her to review his draft, she pointed out several errors and told him to revise them. Before he could start, she added that he should do the revisions after lunch. It was her chance to finally invite him. But when she turned to look for him, she saw him returning to his desk with a cup of instant noodles. Shocked, she scolded him for eating something so unhealthy. Yu sheepishly explained that he was trying to save money. Azusa froze, feeling guilty for snapping at him. She turned away, realizing she had missed her timing again and possibly sounded insensitive on top of it. During her own lunch in a small diner, she felt weighed down by frustration. She thought back to her early days, remembering how her own mentor once brought her to the same restaurant, offering kind words and encouragement. The memory stung, making her wonder if she was failing as a mentor. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was Ritsu, a senior colleague. As she walked back toward the office, they discussed pending tasks and upcoming projects. Before hanging up, Ritsu teasingly advised her to practice small talk and mentioned that the collaboration cafe project might reach out soon. When he learned she had a mentee, he laughed, reminding her to go easy on the rookie. He knew of her reputation for being strict. Azusa argued that she was doing fine, but Ritsu bluntly told her that short replies didn't count as conversation. He also warned that younger employees these days wouldn't hesitate to quit if they felt unsupported. The comment hit her hard. What if you really did leave because of her poor mentoring? That evening, as the office emptied out, Azusa stopped by a bookstore. Despite her earlier resistance, she bought several self-help books about communication and leadership. Back in her apartment, she realized she hadn't bought dinner. Opening her fridge, she found it empty and sighed, then grabbed a cup of noodles, ironically the same food she'd scolded Yu for. She tried to make herself feel better by pairing it with vegetable juice. As she flipped through the first book, one line caught her attention. A good mentor always greets others warmly, with energy and a smile. Remembering her icy greeting that morning, she groaned. Determined to improve, she grabbed a mirror and began practicing. But her forced smile looked so awkward and stiff that she quickly gave up. The next page suggested praising subordinates instead of scolding them. Azusa frowned. She believed in accuracy and improvement, not empty compliments. Was she really cut out for this role? She leaned back, exhausted, and stared at the overcooked cup noodles sitting on the table before digging in anyway. The next morning, disaster struck again. She overslept. Panicking, she rushed through her routine, terrified of being late in front of Yu. Thankfully, she made it just in time, appearing as composed as ever. But as soon as she arrived, she overheard two coworkers whispering. They called her strict and scary, saying the only reason she kept her position was because of her skill, not her people skills. The words pierced deeper than she expected. She dropped her tablet and sticky notes covered in her self-reminders about tips to how to communicate. Yu quickly picked them up and handed them back gently, catching a glimpse of the hurt on her face before she hid it again. She muttered that they should start the day brushing it off. But before she could walk away, Yu turned toward the gossiping coworkers. With a calm smile, he said that he actually felt lucky to be under Azusa's guidance, that he had already seen her kind side. The room fell silent. The two coworkers paled, realizing Azusa had overheard everything. Yu returned to her side, quietly apologizing if he'd overstepped. Azusa turned away, pretending not to care, then whispered a faint thank you. As they walked toward their desks, she awkwardly tried to ask if he wanted to have lunch together, but Yu missed the hint entirely, cheerfully replying that he'd have noodles again, this time with a veggie stick to make it healthy. The next day, everyone gathers in the meeting room as Azusa confidently presents her plan for the company's next big project, a collaboration cafe. One of their popular games, Racing Girls, will be turned into a themed maid cafe event where the characters appear dressed as maids, and the interior will be designed to look just like the game's racing map. It's a bold idea meant to give fans a fully immersive experience. Yu watches quietly from the side, admiring how calm and professional Azusa looks as she explains her plans to the clients. When the meeting ends, the two of them escort their guests out of the building. Their partners seem thrilled, saying the last collaboration brought in tons of new fans and they can't wait to work together again. But once the guests are gone, Azusa's professional tone returns. She tells Yu he'll also be taking part in this cafe project. She instructs him to study her proposal and fill out several documents based on her past work. Then, as she heads back inside, she secretly makes a promise to herself. Today, she will finally invite him to lunch. However, that determination vanishes almost instantly when she tries to scan her ID at the gate and realizes she's used the wrong card. Later in the office, Azusa notices Yu playing Racing Girls on his phone. Curious, she watches for a moment until Yu glances back and asks if she actually plays the game she manages. Azusa gives a quick professional answer, yes she does, because it helps her understand the customers better. What she doesn't admit is that she genuinely loves gaming and has been an avid player since college. Then, shifting back to work mode, she tells Yu to practice more before finalizing his proposal. Taking her advice, Yu starts a race but crashes almost immediately. Azusa can't help sighing, then decides to demonstrate. She takes his phone, relieved that her gaming skills might actually be useful here. Before joining the company, she'd been a hardcore gamer, even working part-time as a game tester. She still prefers gaming over social outings, but when she starts playing, things don't go as planned. The phone controls feel awkward compared to a controller, and before she knows it, she's leaning and swaying with the turns until she suddenly tips over the edge of the couch and falls. Both Yu and Azusa freeze in shock. Mortified, she jumps back up and insists on trying again. Wanting to help, Yu suggests they switch to versus mode for practice, which makes her relax a little. But when they finally race, it's more awkward than impressive. Instead of showing off her skills, Azusa ends up looking completely unreliable. Later, when they return to their desks, she can't shake off the embarrassment. Her colleagues start making lunch plans, and she realizes this could be the perfect moment to finally invite Yu. She glances at him, but he looks so focused on his screen that she hesitates. Maybe now's not the right time, she thinks. Before she can decide, another coworker calls for her help, and she quickly gets up, pushing her thoughts aside. Meanwhile, Yu runs into a problem with his work and turns to ask her a question, only to find her seat empty. He spots her helping someone across the room, but doesn't want to interrupt. Just as he's about to call out, their section head asks for her assistance, and she leaves again. A nearby office mate then invites Yu to lunch, saying he wants to discuss something with him. Hearing that, Azusa feels a pang of regret. She missed her chance again. She scolds herself internally, but keeps typing, trying to focus. When she overhears Yu politely decline, saying he brought his own lunch, she secretly feels relieved. But that relief fades quickly when she sees what he's eating, just a cup of instant noodles. Concerned, she frowns and Yu explains with a sheepish smile that he's on a budget this month but will eat better next time. Swallowing her hesitation, Azusa abruptly declares that she's treating him to lunch. When he tries to refuse, she turns back sharply and says it's her responsibility as his mentor to make sure he stays healthy. Having no room to argue, Yu finally agrees. At the restaurant, Azusa can't help smiling proudly. She's finally done it. She's invited him to lunch. While waiting for their food, she remembers her own mentor, who taught her how to act properly as a subordinate. Lost in thought, she doesn't even notice Yu quietly placing paper towels and a glass of water in front of her. Small gestures she had planned to teach him herself. When the food arrives, she's startled to see Yu's order, just a salad. She immediately scolds him and cuts a generous portion of her steak, dropping it onto his plate before he can protest. The lunch doesn't start off perfectly, but when Yu takes a bite, his face brightens. He thanks her, admitting it's his first proper meal in a while. Curious, she asks why he's been saving money, then instantly regrets it for being too personal. After a short pause, Yu admits he bought an expensive model kit and decided to save money by skipping good meals. To his surprise, Azusa doesn't lecture him. Instead, she smiles and says it's fine to indulge in things you love, just not at the cost of your health. Yu nods gratefully, and Azusa, feeling oddly reflective, silently vows to stop pulling all-nighters to play new games herself. To lighten the mood, she suggests they play Racing Girls again later for practice. That night, she does exactly that, playing until she finally earns first place using only mobile controls. Her stomach growls and she realizes she hasn't eaten yet. Checking the fridge, she finds only 2 eggs and instant curry noodles. As she slurps her makeshift dinner, she chuckles softly. So much for healthy eating advice. The next morning, Azusa walks into the office more tired than usual, dark circles under her eyes but a small smile on her face. She's proud of herself. Now she can finally guide you properly through the game. She notices him sitting beside her, looking troubled, and remembers how lost she'd been as a new employee. Deciding to be supportive, she sternly tells him to always ask her questions right away if he has any. Yu thanks her but assures her he's fine. The response catches her off guard. She was actually looking forward to helping him today. Throughout the morning, she keeps glancing at him, waiting for him to ask something, but he never does. She even pretends to get water and walk past his desk, but he stays quiet. Azusa starts worrying that maybe she's too intimidating. Determined to fix that, she decides the best way to become more approachable is to invite him to lunch again. But before she can, she overhears him chatting with their coworkers. They're planning to eat together, and Yu even suggests inviting her, only for the others to laugh it off, saying she never joins anyone and always eats alone. Yu looks surprised but goes along with them. Hearing that, Azusa quickly hides around the corner as they leave, embarrassed and hurt. Once the elevator doors close, she sighs and decides to spend lunch alone in a nearby park. Sitting under a tree with her modest meal, she reflects on how quickly Yu has been improving. A small part of her worries, if he keeps growing this fast, maybe he won't need her guidance anymore. And she realizes she hasn't exactly shown him her best side lately either. Before she can dwell on it, her phone rings. It's a call from a business partner. Instantly, her professional tone returns, calm and composed. Coincidentally, Yu and his coworkers pass by on their way back from lunch. He spots her sitting alone, still working diligently even on her break. Watching her for a moment, he feels quietly impressed before his coworkers call him back. By the end of the day, Yu is still at his desk, polishing his proposal. Azusa tries to offer help, but he says it's almost done. At the exit, she scans her ID to leave, then hesitates. She feels bad for leaving while he's still working, so she goes back to the office. When she peeks inside, she sees him focused at his desk and suddenly feels shy. Trying to sneak in unnoticed, she's immediately caught. Flustered, she blurts out that she just forgot to finish something and sits down, pretending to work. Time passes, and eventually she reminds him that it's late and the last train will leave soon. But Yu insists on staying a little longer, thanking her for worrying. Then, almost shyly, he admits that her proposal inspired him, not just the writing, but her dedication. He wants to create something she'll be proud of. Azusa is touched to the point of tears. When he notices, he panics and offers her tissues. She quickly wipes her eyes and tells him that while it's good to work hard, he shouldn't push himself too much. She adds softly that he's doing really well, even better than she did when she was new. Yu thanks her for her kindness and for the lunch she treated him to, saying he knows she usually prefers eating alone. Surprised, Azusa blurts out that she actually wanted to eat with him, that it wasn't a burden at all. Realizing what she just confessed, she turns bright red and hides her embarrassment behind a serious tone, telling him to hurry and finish. When he finally wraps up, she books them a taxi home. But while waiting, Yu dozes off on the couch. Smiling, Azusa gently drapes her coat over him, and Yu ties her scarf around his neck to keep him warm. When he wakes up, confused by how bundled he is, she just chuckles softly, content for once that she managed to stay by his side till the very end of the day. The next day, Azusa and Yu are suddenly invited to join a discussion about an upcoming drinking party. Apparently, one of their coworkers is about to get married, and everyone's excited to celebrate. But the moment marriage is mentioned, Azusa feels a sharp sting of dread. Her mother has been pressuring her lately to find someone and settle down, and just hearing the word wedding makes her uneasy. Then their boss makes a surprise announcement. He says he plans to combine the wedding celebration with Yu's welcome party into one big event. And to everyone's surprise, he wants Yu to organize it. He says it'll be a good learning opportunity for him to practice entertaining guests and handling group events. He also asks Azusa to help by guiding Yu in choosing a good restaurant and buying a gift for the newlyweds. Azusa agrees right away, trying to sound confident, but inside she's worried. She rarely joins her office mates for social gatherings, and honestly, she has no clue where people like to eat, let alone what kind of wedding gift to buy. Once the boss leaves the preparations in their hands, Azusa straightens up and declares it'll start planning immediately. She doesn't want to seem unsure in front of Yu. Soon, the two find themselves wandering through a luxury goods store. Yu looks around curiously, trying to figure out what would make a good gift. As they browsed, Azusa gives him a small lecture, saying that gift-giving is an important social skill, not just in the office, but also in learning how to navigate society. But as Yu studies the displays, Azusa secretly pulls out her phone to search online for appropriate wedding gifts. She curses her lack of experience. Because of her introverted nature, she's skipped so many weddings that she can't even remember the last one she attended. She realizes she's never been invited to any recent ones either, probably because she always avoided them. Still, she's determined to guide Yu properly, even if she's just as clueless as he is. Her eyes eventually land on a shelf filled with mugs. One particular set catches her attention, a pair of couple mugs with adorable cat designs. She picks one up, and a faint sparkle appears in her eyes. Noticing her reaction, Yu walks over and asks if she thinks the mugs would make a good gift, but his sudden closeness startles her. Azusa fumbles and accidentally drops the mug, which shatters on the floor. Yu immediately apologizes for startling her, but Azusa insists it isn't his fault. When the sales lady comes to check, Azusa can't help putting herself down over her clumsiness. She insists on paying for the broken mug, but Yu interrupts, asking if they have another pair available because he'd like to buy them. Azusa protests, saying she should be the one to pay. But Yu simply smiles and explains that he likes the design and wants to use them himself. Before she can argue further, he's already at the counter paying for the set. Feeling both defeated and oddly flustered, Azusa vows to find the perfect present for the couple. She scrolls through her phone again, determined to make up for her mistake. Using the same research skills she's honed over years of gaming obsession, she quickly finds something better. After Yu finishes his purchase, she confidently tells him to follow her because she's already found the perfect idea. Once their shopping is done, the two stop for coffee. Yu thanks Azusa for the wonderful suggestion of getting the couple a pair of high-quality towels, saying he's sure they'll love how soft they are. Then he looks surprised to see Azusa taking her coffee black. Trying to sound cool, she explains that adding milk or sugar would only dilute the coffee's original flavor. Yu looks impressed, though he admits he prefers his coffee with a little sweetness. When he takes a sip, Azusa glances at his cup longingly, secretly regretting how pretentious she just sounded. She remembers how her mentor used to drink black coffee with elegance, and she wanted to imitate that sophistication. But when she finally takes a sip of her own drink, the bitterness overwhelms her. She immediately winces and lets out a small scream. Yu chuckles and offers to get some cream or sugar, and she quickly blurts out that he should bring both. After sweetening her coffee, she finally smiles again, until she realizes how embarrassed she must look in front of her junior. Trying to change the subject, she straightens up and says they should move on to their next task, reserving a venue for the party. With the celebration scheduled just before Golden Week, she worries most restaurants might already be fully booked. The two take out their phones and start searching for options. As Yu lists out possible venues, Azusa finds herself drifting off, quietly observing him instead. Instead of focusing on his words, she starts wondering if Yu enjoys drinking. Eventually, she blurts out the question. Yu admits that he's not really into alcohol. Azusa claps her hands in delight, happy they share that sentiment. Realizing she's overreacted, she quickly calms down and tells him there's no need to force himself. Drinking, she says, tastes better when shared with people one feels comfortable around. Yu smiles, grateful for her understanding. He even admits he's heard that she usually skips drinking parties. Sensing his concern, Azusa reassures him that she'll attend this one, because it also celebrates his welcome to the company. Then she gives him a bit of advice, saying it's perfectly fine to decline a drinking invitation if he doesn't feel like going. Yu nods, feeling reassured. But then he suddenly admits he'd actually like to drink with her someday. The confession catches Azusa completely off guard. Without thinking, she blurts out that she doesn't see any merit in drinking with him. The moment the words leave her mouth, she instantly regrets them. She scolds herself internally for sounding so cold when Yu had only been trying to be friendly. Unable to take it back, she awkwardly changes the topic, saying they should focus on booking the restaurant. The next morning, Azusa walks to work, still feeling guilty about rejecting him so harshly. When she arrives at her desk, she's surprised to see the cat-patterned mug sitting beside her computer. Yu explains nervously that he only really needed one mug and thought she might like the other one. He says it's his way of thanking her. Flustered and touched, Azusa awkwardly replies that she'll use it as a toothbrush holder. That evening, the company's beer party finally begins. Azusa is tasked with giving the opening toast. She keeps it brief, joking that everyone should blame the boss for making her do it. Then she congratulates their co-worker on the engagement and raises her glass. Throughout the night, she stays polite and composed, refusing alcohol, pouring drinks for her boss, and filling her own glass with tea. But she can't help glancing toward Yu from time to time, quietly wondering how he's doing. Meanwhile, one of their co-workers, Koru, approaches Yu and asks how he's getting along with Azusa. Yu glances in her direction and smiles, saying they're actually getting along well. Koru laughs, admitting he was worried since most newcomers are usually terrified of her. Yu says he's grateful to have her as a mentor because she always corrects and supports him when he needs it. Satisfied, Koru pats him on the back and tells him to relax and enjoy the night. Across the room, Azusa overhears their conversation and feels a mix of relief and protectiveness. Then, in a moment of boldness, or maybe because of the alcohol around her, she suddenly stands up, walks over, grabs Yu's drink, and downs it in one go. Startling everyone, she firmly declares that Yu is her mentee, and she won't let him drink anything she hasn't tested first. The group bursts into laughter, amused that she's finally socializing. As the night goes on, Azusa starts feeling tipsy. She excuses herself and steps outside for air. When she doesn't return, Yu notices and goes to check on her. He finds her outside, insisting she's fine, but she eventually admits she's feeling sick. Yu offers to get her things, and while he's inside, their co-workers try to keep him from leaving. But before they can, Azusa reappears with a stern look and announces that she received a call from a client dissatisfied with Yu's work and that they need to discuss it immediately. Yu quickly realizes she's giving him an excuse to leave. Playing along, he apologizes and exits with her. As they walk home, Azusa apologizes for the scene, but Yu says he's actually thankful since he didn't want to keep drinking anyway. They stop to rest on a nearby bench, and Azusa hesitantly asks if he finds her scary as a mentor. Yu shakes his head, saying he was only nervous because it was his first party. She relaxes, giving him quiet advice about taking deep breaths when nervous. Yu smiles back and tells Azusa he doesn't think she's scary at all. In fact, she's been kind to him from the very start. As they talk, he suddenly remembers the first time they met, when he was nervously rehearsing for his interview and accidentally messed up his lines. Azusa had told him to take calm, steady breaths and treat the interview as a way to get to know the company, not as something to fear. He thanked her then, and ever since he's been curious about her. But then, out of nowhere, Azusa stands up and starts walking ahead. Yu, surprised, blurts out that he'd love to share a drink with her someday. To his shock, she actually agrees in a playful tone, saying she wants to teach him many things and maybe learn a few from him too. Her words lift his spirits, but that relief doesn't last long. Soon, he notices her steps getting shaky, and before he can react, she nearly collapses, the alcohol finally catching up to her. The next day, things take an awkward turn. Azusa scolds Yu for not taking a shower, clearly annoyed. Yu quickly apologizes, explaining that after escorting her home, he missed the last train and had a crash at a friend's place, where he fell asleep right away. Hearing that, Azusa starts to feel a little guilty, until her eyes land on a faint lipstick stain on his shirt. And that's when things spiral. She instantly jumps to conclusions, assuming he must have stayed over at his girlfriend's house. To make matters worse, their coworker Koru notices the stain too and points it out, and before Yu can even explain, Koru walks off, now convinced Yu has a girlfriend. Unable to hold back her curiosity, Azusa demands an explanation. Flustered, Yu insists the lipstick came from her when he helped her into the taxi the night before. The moment he says that, her face turns bright red. Mortified, she insists that he take off his shirt so she can buy him a new one. Yu panics and pulls back immediately, because she's actually trying to undress him in the middle of the office. Before the situation can get any worse, their boss calls out to them, interrupting the chaos. And, as if things couldn't get any more surprising, he asks the two of them to take his place on a business trip to Okinawa, right in the middle of Golden Week. A few days later, Yu and Asuza are on a flight to Okinawa. While Yu casually looks out the window, Asuza reminds him that they have a packed schedule ahead. Yu flashes her a confident smile, promising to do his best. But when Asuza glances down at the sea glittering below them, she can't help getting distracted by how beautiful the water looks. When they land, a company representative greets them and announces that the team will all carpool to the shooting site. The ride is upbeat, filled with chatter from the filming crew, and while everyone else talks excitedly, Yu quietly reviews his notes. Asuza notices how focused he is and watches him in silence until they arrive. The photo shoot starts off smoothly. The model, Nashiko, immediately slips into rhythm. Her poses flow so naturally that the shoot feels effortless. Meanwhile, Yu takes charge of filming the behind-the-scenes clips. At one point, he asks Asuza if they're allowed to record during breaks, and she assures him they already have permission, but gently reminds him to notify anyone he plans to film. Then Yu suddenly pauses. He realizes Asuza is wearing a swimsuit too, even though he thought only Nashiko needed to. Puffing up a little with pride, Asuza explains that it would be rude to let the model be the only one dressed like that, so she joined in so things wouldn't feel awkward. Yu panics and blurts out that it really isn't necessary, since swimsuit shoots are part of Nashiko's job. But when he sees Asuza's face drop in embarrassment, he backtracks instantly, admitting he doesn't actually know anything about swimsuit shoot etiquette. That softens her expression again. But just then, a gust of wind blows Nashiko's sun hat straight into the ocean. Before anyone can react, Asuza dives into the water without hesitation. Moments later, she emerges triumphantly with the hat held high. The entire staff cheers, and when she hands the dripping hat to an assistant, Yu immediately offers her a towel. However, Asuza declines, proudly saying she'll dry naturally, and that wearing a swimsuit really wasn't a bad call after all. Yu laughs and promises he'll wear one next time too. But suddenly, a staff member walks over and starts showering Asuza with compliments about her figure. The moment he reaches out to touch her arm, something stirs inside Yu. Without thinking, he lets out a little sound to interrupt them. The staff member turns toward Yu confused, and Yu quickly stammers that Nashiko is on break and he needs to check on her. Worried he's been slacking, the staffer apologizes and hurries off to buy refreshments for everyone. Asuza lightly taps Yu's arm, thanking him for stepping in. The rest of the shoot moves fast. Yu throws himself into filming every angle, carrying equipment, and helping out wherever he can. And no matter where he goes, Asusa is never too far, always checking if he's doing okay with the team. By sunset, Yu is completely wiped out. Noticing his exhaustion, Asusa presses a cold bottle of water against his cheek. Startled, he takes it gratefully and drinks big gulps. She watches fondly, praising him for working so hard. But the moment she hears her own voice, she freezes, realizes how casually she said it, and turns bright red. To hide her embarrassment, she immediately tells him to finish the whole bottle and walks away. That evening, the team celebrates their first successful day. Everyone is happy to be at Okinawa, grateful for smooth progress, and several staff members even praise Asusa for planning the schedule so well. They also thank Yu for his help, which makes him a little shy. Suddenly, the stage lights shift and performers whistle to gain everyone's attention. Traditional Okinawan music plays and the dancers invite the crowd to join. The men have to perform the rock movement while the women follow the paper. Fired up, the team drags Yu and Asusa along. Asusa tries to refuse, too embarrassed to admit she doesn't know how to dance. Yu jumps in first, dancing so offbeat that he looks ridiculous, but charmingly so. Seeing him try so bravely, Asusa feels guilty for hesitating and finally joins him. Yu brightens immediately, delighted to see her dancing at his side. Soon, the whole team is moving together, laughing and swaying under the warm Okinawa night. And when Asusa smiles, genuinely and with no hesitation, Yu can't help but stare. Later that night, back at the hotel, Yu collapses on his bed, overwhelmed by a growing confusion about his feelings for her. But before he can sort through it, the doorbell rings. Asusa stands there holding a handful of cream pouches and points out that he's badly sunburned. Only then does Yu look down and realize how red he's gotten. Asusa scolds him gently, reminding him that since they're doing PR for a sunscreen brand, he actually needs to use sunscreen. Seeing his face fall, she softens her tone, explaining that Okinawa's UV rays are unusually strong this time of year. Yu smiles at her attempt to comfort him and promises to apply sunscreen properly the next day. The next morning, the shoot continues at a field. The sun is harsh, but the team stays positive. Unlike yesterday's beach-themed session, today's shoot highlights Okinawa's city spots. They even visit a shrine where Nashiko draws her fortune. After checking footage, they return to the beach to plan the rest. And once the last cut is wrapped, everyone cheers, because they're officially finished and free for the rest of the afternoon. However, while the rest of the team buzzes with excitement about sightseeing, Asusa hesitates. She wants to invite Yu to explore Okinawa with her, but she's scared she'll sound too demanding or that he'd rather have some alone time. Meanwhile, Yu secretly wonders what she plans to do. And right then, a staff member suggests everyone go sightseeing together. The whole group cheers at the idea, except Yu and Asusa, who freeze with identical expressions. Asusa feels panic rise in her chest. She's already exhausted from socializing and doesn't know if she can keep smiling for another half day. She tries to convince herself she can manage, but Yu steps in. Before she can force herself to say yes, he interrupts, saying they need their free time to brainstorm ideas for their upcoming collab cafe. Instantly relieved, Asusa agrees without hesitation, and the team decides to split up. Once they're alone, she thanks Yu for saving her. She asks which cafe he wants to visit first, but Yu gets overwhelmed browsing choices. So she leans over his shoulder, takes one look, and picks a relaxing traditional-style cafe for them to start with. They enjoy tea served in pottery cups and afterwards visit a shop famous for its giant parfaits. By sunset, they arrive at a seaside cafe glowing in orange light. Yu tries to work on plans for their call-out cafe, but is repeatedly distracted by Asusa looking out at the water with such a serene, beautiful expression. On their walk back, Yu feels energized for the first time in days. Meanwhile, Asusa reflects on how hard Yu works, how he never complains and uses even his free time to get things done. She suddenly wonders if he enjoyed the trip at all. When Yu notices her fall quiet, he checks on her and she quickly thanks him for all the behind-the-scenes footage. But the mood breaks when they arrive at the hotel and learn that only one room was reserved for them. Asusa tries to fix the mistake, but the hotel is fully booked due to Golden Week. Internally panicking, she decides they'll have to take the room for now. After her bath, she tries to calm herself, remembering a similar incident years ago when she shared a room with her mentor, Kenzaki. He made her feel better by ordering cake and charging it to the company. Wondering how she can make Yu comfortable, she steps out, only to find him packing. Yu tells her that he'll spend the night at a nearby manga cafe so she can have the room to herself. Asusa immediately stops him. She insists that room sharing happens sometimes and that she's fine with it. She even brings up her experience with her mentor to reassure him. But Yu still hesitates. His hand is already on the door when she suddenly challenges him to a racing game rematch. Holding out her phone, she smirks, teasing him for being scared. Yu blinks, stunned, then laughs and accepts, reminding her that she never beat him even once last time. Soon, the living room is covered in snacks as they play round after round. Asusa struggles terribly with the mobile controls, accusing you of cheating whenever he speeds ahead. When Yu notices she hasn't used any of her turbo boosts, he guides her gently. Instead of being embarrassed, she grins, determined to win. Her enthusiasm makes you blush, something she mistakes for more sunburn. She teases him for forgetting sunscreen again, and Yu escapes to buy drinks. But while standing at the vending machine, he feels a sharp pang of jealousy when he remembers she once shared a room with her mentor. When he returns, Asusa is fast asleep, clutching her phone. Yu smiles softly, until she suddenly wakes up and scolds him for taking too long. She refuses to sleep until she finally wins. Yu laughs and plays with her into the night. The next morning, they almost miss their flight home, sprinting through the airport with their luggage. Despite barely sleeping, Yu feels refreshed. He got new ideas for their collab cafe, and more importantly, he genuinely enjoyed himself. Asusa admits she had fun too, smiling beside him as they run. And even though Yu blushes again when she reminds him about their busy schedule once they return to the office, he can't help thinking that the trip was perfect in its own chaotic way. That morning, while Asusa is quietly eating her breakfast, the news suddenly interrupts her routine with an urgent warning. A strong typhoon is heading toward the area, and everyone is advised to stay indoors. She checks the clock, sighs, and pulls up her agenda. Even with the advisory, she realizes that some tasks just can't be completed from home. The PR materials for the sunscreen project still need final adjustments, and the meeting with the cafe team simply can't be postponed. Because of that, she'll have to go in, even though she hates the idea. And now she wonders, should she make Yu, the newbie she's been guiding, come in too? She leans back, torn. On one hand, it feels unfair to ask a junior employee to commute during dangerous weather, but on the other, she can't finish everything alone, and she knows she'll need him. While she hesitates, her mind drifts, almost involuntarily, to the Okinawa trip they took together for work. The salty breeze, the laughter, the way he supported her during the shoot. She catches herself smiling and almost chokes on her toast. Shaking her head, she mutters, "Focus," and gets up to prepare for the commute. She throws on her rain gear and hurries out the door, only to realize too late that she forgot the one thing she actually needs, her umbrella. When she arrives at the near-empty office building, she's surprised to see not a single coworker around. But then a voice greets her from behind, making her jump. It's Yu, and though she almost gasped in shock, she quickly hides her nerves by clearing her throat and telling him they need to get their work done fast so they won't get caught in the worst part of the typhoon. As they settle at their desks, the quiet of the office feels strange, calmer, closer, almost intimate. It's just the two of them, and even though the silence is comfortable, it somehow makes her overly aware of her own movements. She tells herself she should be used to him by now, especially since they even ended up sharing a hotel room during the Okinawa job. Still, she tries not to look at him too long, and doesn't notice that he occasionally glances at her whenever she takes a sip from the cat-themed mug he once gave her. After a while, they finally wrap up the materials they need for the client meeting. Yu stands by the window and frowns. The rain has intensified into an angry sheet of gray. Asusa sighs. She had hoped to finish before it started pouring like this. She glances at Yu's shoes and worries they'll get ruined. When he admits they're not waterproof, she scolds him gently to be more prepared. He innocently compliments her cute rain boots, and she nearly combusts on the spot before masking it by lecturing him again. They head downstairs, only to be greeted by the deafening roar of heavy rain. When Asusa mutters that she forgot her umbrella, she wants to sink into the ground, especially because she teased Yu earlier about being prepared. Without thinking twice, Yu insists she take his umbrella. Before she can refuse, he adds that he has a spare collapsible one in his bag. Reluctantly, she accepts. Once they step outside, the wind starts attacking from all angles. While her umbrella remains sturdy, thanks to Yu's thoughtfulness, his flimsy collapsible one bends backward like it's about to break. Watching him struggle tugs at her conscience, so she urges him to switch umbrellas with her. He refuses, stubborn as ever. Finally, she moves closer and holds out her umbrella to cover both of them, insisting it would be terrible if a client saw him drenched. Yu smiles softly at her concern and reaches to take the umbrella handle, accidentally brushing and holding her hand in the process. She goes stiff, pretending it didn't happen. As they trudge through the storm, she notices that Yu still angles the umbrella more toward her, letting rain soak one of his shoulders anyway. And being this close, she realizes, maybe for the first time, just how tall he really is. By the time they reach the client's office, both look slightly battered by the wind. The clients apologize for summoning them in weather like this, but Asusa stays composed and even cheerful as she presents the merchandise samples for the cafe collaboration. Yu follows flawlessly, explaining the cafe menu plans and the upcoming racetracks in the new update. Watching him, Asusa feels quietly impressed. At the same time, she feels guilty. If only she hadn't forgotten her umbrella, maybe she wouldn't have had to rely on him so much today. After the meeting, they rush back to their office. Asusa is now carrying a brand new umbrella she bought at a convenience store. However, because the weather is terrible, they both end up drenched anyway. When they finally get indoors, she immediately throws a towel over Yu's head, rubbing his hair dry. They laugh and she can't help thinking he looks like a big, soggy cat, her favorite type of creature. Back at their floor, she tells him to hang his jacket properly so it can dry. But when he leaves to buy coffee, she notices he simply draped it over his chair. Worried it'll wrinkle, she picks it up and marvels at how absurdly large it is compared to her own size. She even slips it on for a moment, curious how people are supposed to hang something this big. When he returns with coffee, he finds her quietly wearing his jacket, playing with the sleeves without realizing it. He doesn't say a word, just watches the sight with a soft smile. Once she notices him, her face goes crimson and she pretends it never happened. Time passes and the storm outside seems to be pushing toward Kanto earlier than anyone predicted. As she eats her sandwich, she sees Yu staring at the rain, looking oddly restless. When she teases him about being excited for the typhoon, he admits the weather is making him feel antsy. She tells him it's normal, he's still young. Immediately, Yu fires back by teasing her about earlier, pointing out that she was the one playing with his jacket. She nearly chokes in embarrassment, saying adults can be childish sometimes too. Suddenly, lightning flashes, followed by a powerful thunderclap. Azusa flinches hard and moves away from the window to a corner where she can't see the flashes. Yu notices she might actually be scared. He reassures her that lightning will most likely strike a lightning rod in the business district. She tries to stay calm, but another growl of thunder still rattles her. To distract her, Yu suggests a word game. She agrees, and within seconds he messes up, causing her to laugh so hard she forgets her fear for a moment. When she settles down, Yu points out that the lightning has already moved on, so she finally feels steady enough to get back to work. Eventually, the rain intensifies again. Azusa tells Yu to go home early before the trains shut down. However, Yu hesitates when he realizes Azusa plans to stay behind. She admits she still has tasks that can only be completed in the office, and she'd rather finish today since she'll be working from home tomorrow. Instead of leaving, Yu offers to help so she can go home sooner. Touched, she sends him to retrieve some sales documents. While he's downstairs, a senior from his school, Suvihara, spots him and starts complaining about his own deadlines. Suvihara casually asks if Yu can take some work off his hands, and Yu, polite and far too easygoing, agrees. Meanwhile, Azusa finishes her meeting and realizes how late it's gotten. The wind howls even louder outside. When she returns to her desk and sees Yu hasn't left yet, she's confused, until he explains he's doing extra work for a senior. That's the moment her patience breaks. She storms down in the sales department, confronts Suvihara, and tells him off for dumping work on Yu. Suvihara insists it wasn't forced, but Azusa counters sharply. Asking a junior is basically an order when seniority is involved. She forbids him from making Yu work overtime during a typhoon and storms out. Yu apologizes to Suvihara before sprinting after her. When he catches up, she tells him quietly to just say no next time. Before leaving, they check the train schedules, still running from now. But when they step outside, a violent gust nearly knocks Azusa off her feet. She immediately retreats. Both stare into the storm, wondering how they'll make it to the station alive. Azusa suggests they ditch their umbrellas and run for it. Yu disagrees, saying sharing an umbrella is safer. He adds, awkwardly, that at least he's strong enough not to get blown away. He realizes how strange that sounded and quickly clarifies he meant physical strength, not anything else. She finds herself reluctantly agreeing, and once again they end up walking close together. Too close. As they push through the storm, Yu keeps the umbrella angled toward her, even though it barely helps him. She admits she wanted to run because she was scared they'd miss the train. He laughs and quickly apologizes before a violent gust nearly snatches the umbrella away. He pulls it closer to her, urging her to step in tighter. Nervously, she does. Thankfully, they reach the station just in time, and they discover they share the same train line home, something they never realized before because Azusa usually works later. They chat awkwardly until her stop arrives. Before she steps off, Yu hands her the sturdy umbrella, saying he lives close to his station anyway. She thanks him, hands him a small pack she bought earlier, and watches him bow politely as the doors close. When she gets home, she hangs his umbrella beside hers, placing them almost deliberately close. Meanwhile, Yu arrives home and dries his hair with the towel she wrapped around him earlier. As he does, he wonders if he should buy nice-smelling fabric softener so the towel will smell good when he returns it. That marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoy the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.